Good afternoon. We're currently at the Office of the Prime Minister conference room, and they will be hosting a press conference this afternoon where we will hear remarks from the Honorable Dr. Cassandra Williams, Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, who also has special responsibility for senior security, and we'll also be receiving remarks from Ms. Marie-Therese Jonker, owner of Premium Home and Residential Care Services, better known as FACS in Dominica. And after those two remarks, there will be a question and answer segment for members of the media. This afternoon, the press conference will not be very long, about 45 minutes, and we will be going to the podium for the welcome from Ms. Dion Duras-Smith, Press Secretary for the Government of Dominica.
Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We extend a special welcome to those of you tuned in via DBS Radio and Cairo FM. First, let me say that the Prime Minister, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, sends his best regards as he is unable to be with us in person for this briefing. In his stead, and also in her own capacity as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, with a special responsibility for senior security, we have Dr. the Honorable Cassandra Williams. We also have with us Ms. Marie-Therese Jonker, the owner of the Premium Home and Residential Care Services, FACS. You may recall that in his Independence Day address of 2022, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit recommitted his government to the care and safety of our seniors, of course building on previous initiatives to promote the well-being of Dominica's elderly people. Today we are here to tell you about a new initiative of the government of Dominica to address the needs of our seniors, to protect and to uphold their rights. I now welcome the Honorable Minister to address you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. You have been invited here to speak to a new initiative to benefit the elderly members of our society. The Government of Dominica holds a proud and a distinguished record of service to Dominica's elderly through the Yes We Care program, monthly allowances, and the provision of adequate housing. We have always sought to ensure the comfort of our seniors. A society is judged on how it treats its most vulnerable citizens, and the policies this government has pursued in past years speak to the intent to look after the welfare of our elderly citizens and to create the conditions for them to live with dignity. The Yes We Care program, for example, continues to provide our elderly with daily assistance. And you will remember that to support our seniors, this government introduced the payment of a non-contributory pension to persons aged 70 and over. As of January this year, this was extended to our seniors from age 65 who are retired, do not qualify for Social Security pension, and are not yet eligible for the government non-contributory pension. Our commitment has never wavered. It is a result of the fundamental and core principles of this Labour Party administration to provide comfort to the most vulnerable among us. We believe that our seniors are owed our respect and consideration. Indeed, it is our Christian duty and responsibility to secure their well-being and to provide them with as much comfort as we can at this stage of their lives. I wish to announce today that to improve our system of care to our country's seniors, the Government of Dominica will establish an advisory board to coordinate the health and social care support for the elderly in Dominica. This advisory board will provide leadership, propose a multidisciplinary approach and make strategic recommendations for improvements in systems and processes for the delivery of care services to seniors. Some of their areas of focus will include reviews of processes of care, ethics in clinical and social care, and the physical environment. In essence, the board will promote a structured approach to the development and provision of elderly services, oversee the availability of and access to medical care, devise targeted interventions to address their specific health issues, ensure their proper nutrition, and promote their overall well-being within our society. The board will act in an advisory capacity to the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, and will be chaired by Ms. Marie-Therese Jonker, the owner of Premium Home and Residential Care Services, PARCS. The board will comprise of representatives of a number of local institutions involved in the provision of care services to the elderly. As Minister with responsibility for senior security, I'm extremely gratified to be part of this initiative, to lend even greater support and attention to the treatment, circumstances, and care of the senior members of our society. I wish to thank and commend the Honorable Prime Minister for moving quickly to establish the advisory board and to empower its members to act in the interest of our elderly population. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services is committed to developing systems and procedures which prioritize the well-being and care of our elderly, ensuring they have access to the assistance and support they need in their twilight years. Here in Dominica, we are aware of the challenges facing our seniors, including abandonment, abuse, and lack of access to quality care. We have all heard the horror stories of seniors who have fallen victim to abuse, oftentimes committed by their own relatives. This abuse may be physical in nature, sexual, or emotional. Neglect in particular is a common issue faced by our elderly in Dominica, as well as financial exploitation by children, close relatives, and even neighbors. As our citizens age, they are plagued with increased physical and mental health challenges, so that it becomes necessary to provide them with assistance for daily living and long-term health and wellness. The elderly among us need to be made to feel like they belong, like they matter. As a caring society, we want to ensure they do not feel socially isolated and lonely, which could lead to depression, illness, and even death. The advisory board being established by the government of Dominica will address these and other challenges faced by our elderly. Its objectives are to strengthen the social safety net already in place to protect our elderlies and provide them with access to quality care, attention, and health and medical interventions. I think as our society becomes more complex, with mounting social and economic challenges, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services stands to benefit from the advice of learned and experienced people with informed recommendations to improve the lives of our vulnerable. Ms. Jonker, I thank you and your team for accepting the invitation to serve. Let us commit to providing our elderly with more attention, more love, more understanding, and most importantly, quality elderly care. I am excited about what lies ahead as we work together to make the lives of our seniors easier, happier, and more rewarding. Thank you.
All thanks to the Honorable Dr. Cassandra Williams, Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Security, Social Services rather, with special responsibility for seniors' security. As you heard from the Honorable Minister, the advisory board will be chaired by Ms. Marie-Therese Jonker, who is the owner of FARCS, and she will now address you.
My name is Marie-Therese Jonker, and I am the CEO of FARCS, Premium Home and Residential Care Services. We specialize in looking after older persons. Good afternoon to all present and to all of you listening on the various media platforms. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Let me first acknowledge the Honourable Minister, Dr. Cassandra Williams, Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, with special responsibility for senior security. I'd also like to acknowledge our Press Secretary, Mrs. Durant-Smith, Mr. Curtis Matthew from DBS, and of course the Government Information Service, Kyrie FM and the New Chronicle. Thank you so much for being here today. Messieurs, Madame, bonjour. Bonjour à tout grand monde Dominique. Jodi, c'est un bonjour pour autres. So before launching into the reason why we're here today, I wish to make this statement. We are blessed because we have a Prime Minister who, when he makes a promise, he delivers on that promise. And I can make this statement with conviction because on the 6th of November 2022, during the first Independence Cultural Extravaganza for Seniors, organized by FARCS in collaboration with the Government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, our Prime Minister made a promise. He promised to look after our seniors. And today, just 3 months later, the process of reviewing our current programs for seniors and engaging with all stakeholders to take action today for an age-friendly Dominica tomorrow has begun. So today is an occasion for celebration, not just for older persons, but for all citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica, whether here or abroad, because the creation of a National Advisory Board for all matters affecting older persons continues to support the Prime Minister's message: one Dominica, one people, one vision. In the words of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, I want to tell the world that older people everywhere count, that people of all ages should be included in sustainable development goals. As we get older, our rights do not change. As we get older, we are no less human and should not become invisible. Our government is taking steps to ensure that every older person in Dominica counts. Every person is visible, that no one falls through the gap. Working closely with the government and affiliated agencies, including private enterprise, NGOs, community groups, churches, we will together address and put in place additional policies, regulations and protocols to enhance the existing support currently in place, such as the Yes We Care program. And in doing so, we are going to achieve our aim of creating an age and dementia-friendly society in our country. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to the Prime Minister and the Government of Dominica for investing in this vision, an age-friendly country, and in particular, a country and a society that is sensitized to the impact and effects of dementia. The theme, Action Today for an Age-Friendly Society Tomorrow, is particularly poignant as we strive to raise awareness of issues affecting older persons, and in so doing, bring about changes to create our age-friendly country. As you know, Dominica is known for its natural beauty and rich cultural history. Dominica is also home to centenarians and a growing number of elderly residents, many of whom live alone, not by choice, but because children and loved ones now live abroad. We want to make sure that our island continues to be a place where our elders can live happily and take advantage of all things that makes this island so special. But we can only achieve this by working together as one united nation to protect our elders. Our aim is to make Dominica not just a great place to live, it already is, but the best place to grow older. An inclusive society that encourages older persons to participate more in their community's social, civic, and economic life, and in so doing, promote active aging. I have a vision, a dream of making all communities in Dominica a great place to grow old. I know that our Prime Minister, and by extension, the Cabinet of Ministers, share that dream. Ageism and elder abuse in all its ugly forms must end now, once and for all. So we are honoured today to stand here and tell you that we are creating a national advisory board that will deal with all matters affecting older persons. And I want to talk to you today about the two priorities that we want to address immediately. So one of the board's first priorities will be to advise the government of Dominica on the creation of a national dementia plan. According to the World Health Organization's guidance towards a national dementia plan, 50 million people worldwide currently live with dementia, a condition that causes significant psychological burden as well as social and financial distress to those living with it, their carers, and their families. The government of Dominica recognizes that a comprehensive multi-sectoral public policy response aimed at addressing the needs of people with dementia, their carers and families is needed to improve quality of life, enhance equitable access to services, and reduce stigma and social isolation. This is not new. In fact, the government of Dominica signed up to the World Health Organization's work towards a national dementia plan as long ago as May 2017. Unfortunately for us, Hurricane Maria, and then quickly on the back of that, COVID-19 came along, and so the government's plans had to be put on hold. We are back, and we are ready to set up our national dementia plan and make it work. Dementia is a debilitating condition for which there is currently no cure. Research investments remain relatively low compared to other diseases of similar importance, such as cancer or cardiovascular disease. It is therefore crucial for us in Dominica to be a part of the global drive to focus on what can be done to improve the lives of people with dementia, their carers, and their families. People with dementia have complex needs that are multisectoral in nature. So recognizing and addressing those needs requires coordinated efforts across all levels of government, local, regional, and national, and public sectors, as well as the private sectors, NGOs, and community organizations. Basically, this affects all of us, and we all need to be a part of the drive to create a national dementia plan. Creating a dementia plan is an opportunity to collaborate closely with relevant stakeholders, but most importantly, those living with dementia, their carers, and families. Formulating a dementia plan not only signals political commitment to identifying and addressing dementia as a public health priority, but also provides the opportunity to identify any gaps in our health and social welfare system, rationalize service delivery, and optimize the use of available resources. A dementia plan recognizes the value of older people and those with dementia in society. It also asserts the need for policy change aimed at enhancing prevention, treatment, and care for people with dementia and their carers through better integration of health and social sectors. The government of Dominica intends to integrate a national dementia plan into existing national plans to address issues such as aging, disability, or non-communicable diseases. This will allow for a more harmonized response across the health sector and prove effective in pooling and allocating limited resources. So, another one of our priorities is the case for enacting or enhancing legislation to make elder abuse a crime. It is urgent that we address the extent and complexity of elder abuse. We hear horror stories all the time about people taking people's land, people transferring properties into their names, people collecting people's pensions, or placing their names on elders' accounts and using the money not for the elder, but for themselves. We are an aging population and we must address the extent and complexity of elder abuse. So what is elder abuse? Elder abuse involves physical assault, sexual assault and harassment, coercion, threats and intimidation, theft and fraud, neglect of the most horrendous types. And yet, they are labeled abuse rather than crimes or poor practice. Any label rather than face the reality that elder abuse is a crime and needs to be prosecuted. Our government, through our Prime Minister, who will not let us forget, brought into being the Yes We Care program that is making a difference in the lives of many of our senior citizens. He is ready, with the support of this advisory board and other stakeholders, to put in place legislation to protect older persons from abuse, to make the perpetrator accountable for his or her actions, to send a clear message that elder abuse in all its forms will not be tolerated, and those who perpetrate abuse against our seniors will be held criminally accountable. It is not acceptable that we can continue to allow elder abuse to occur around us in a civilized society. We must root it out. Elder abuse is a crime, and we need to make it one right now. Too many old people are suffering, losing their life savings due to abuse, usually perpetrated against them by someone they trust, a son, a daughter, a niece or a nephew or trusted friend. This must stop. Our government recognizes the special needs of older persons for protection. Perpetrators of abuse against the elderly, in whatever form, will not be allowed to get away with their crimes. The need for legislation to protect older persons from abuse is needed, and it is urgent, and we are working towards bringing legislation in to make elder abuse a crime. So those are the first two priorities of the National Advisory Board: creating and implementing a national dementia plan and making more robust legislation so that elder abuse in all its ugly forms is a crime, becomes a crime, and is prosecuted as a crime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Juncker, for outlining very clearly the objectives of the advisory board. At this point, I welcome you to pose your questions to the members of the head table, if you so wish.
Yes, good afternoon. Curtis Matthew from DBS Radio. My question is for Ms. Juncker. Good afternoon to you. You've outlined two of the recommendations you all intend to put forward. Will you make recommendations later on for increasing the subvention that government provides to some of these charitable institutions which deal with the elderly? You could just, yeah.
thank you for your question. The two recommendations that we've spoken about today, which is the National Dementia Plan and enacting legislation for elder abuse, is just the beginning. There are so many things that we need to look at, and of course, we will review and see what needs to be done, what changes need to be made, and we will make recommendations as necessary. So yes, we will be looking at the subventions, and we will be making recommendations as necessary.
By the way, based on what you know,
Yes.
are you happy with the subvention that you see around these institutions here? Are you happy with what they get so far?
I cannot comment on that because I do not have sufficient information to enable me to answer that question, but thank you for asking. I will make some inquiries and we will be able to answer those questions for you later.
A question for you, Madam, as well. Nathaniel Duran from Kyrie News.
Hello, Mr. Duran.
The government has a program that we can all applaud, the Yes We Care program.
Indeed.
For the elderly already.
Yes.
First of all, to what extent will this add to what is already existing? And the second part of the question is such that it takes persons to care for the elderly and also to care for those who care for the elderly.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
will there be formalized training for the persons already involved in caring for the elderly so we can have a higher level of service being offered to those persons gerontologically?
Thank you so much for your two-part question. So I'm going to answer the second part first. I can tell you emphatically, yes, that one of the things that we will be doing is putting together a training program for carers, not just carers working professionally as carers, but also for carers who are caring for individuals, their loved ones at home. I believe that there are already some programs in place and that the college may have a program, but we're going to work together with the college so that we can put something in place that works for everybody, both professionals and carers at home. So that's the second part. Remind me of the first part of your question.
As it relates to what already exists.
Right, in terms of the Yes We Care program. Well, we think the Yes We Care program is an amazing initiative which didn't exist until this present government came into power, as you know. And it is wonderful that we have people going into seniors' homes and helping them with day-to-day activities. But what we'd like to do is to review the services that are currently being provided and see how we can improve upon that. Thank you.
Jamasha, you have a question? Sure, go ahead.
Is it for me?
Is it for Ms. Junker?
I have one question for Honorable Cassandra Williams as well as one for Ms. Okay. You first? Yes. So, good afternoon. Jamasha Melu, TBS Radio. My first question is, in Dominica, we currently have in place the Dominica Dementia Foundation, which I'm actually a member of. And I'm wondering how this initiative will aid in bridging the gap between the elderly and the youth in order for them to have better social care as well as just basic care overall. And my second question is, the last week of January, which was the 23rd to the 27th, the ADI as well as DDF engaged in a campaign which was #What'sYourPlan. It called on the government to put in place a national dementia plan. Did this help or foster the government in quickly or hastening their steps in creating a national dementia plan? So those are my two questions for you.
Repeat the first one because...
The first one, how will the national dementia plan bridge the gap to the elderly and the youth?
I'm of the firm opinion that the youth is to get involved. They need to be educated about, first of all, what is dementia? How does it affect families? How can they get involved as well? And so the dementia plan, the National Dementia Plan, will be taking care of all of that. I'm sure all of us here will have recognized that our society now comprises of youth which, in my opinion, do not adequately respect the elderly. I'm sure you will agree with me. There's a lack of respect for elderly people. There's a lack of care. And I'm of the firm opinion that with this new program, with this new plan, the gap will be bridged. Thank you very much. The second question, Ms. Jonker will answer.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your question. I'm delighted to know that you're a member of the Dementia Foundation because your president is one of the members of the advisory board. In terms of just adding on what the Honourable Minister said as regards the merging of youth and the elderly, you will be aware as a member of the Dementia Foundation that the World Health Organization has issued a guide on, and so I'm just putting it up so that you can see it. This is the standard by which we will create and implement our dementia plan. And it is a three-stage process, as I'm sure you know. And it makes provision, if you look at phases A and B, when you have a minute, you can find this incidentally on the World Health Organization website. It is the template, essentially, for creating a national dementia plan, and we are going to follow it to the letter. But it does make provision for the involvement of youth, and we want as many youth as possible on board because we want you to understand what dementia is, how it impacts on families, because youth are looking after persons with dementia, but they have little or no understanding of what's going on. So often what you hear, certainly when I go around or when someone calls me in desperation and says, please help, I don't know what to do, my mom or my auntie is so troublesome or they're just wicked. A lot of the time here, because of the fact that people don't understand and have little knowledge of dementia, they will tell you the person is just being wicked, but actually that's not true at all. So we're going to work within our dementia plan, one, to educate the public, young and old or not so young, about dementia, what it is, how it affects people, and what you can do to help those to actually help people. So for example, one of the things we'll be looking at is whether we can set up a helpline so people can call to get advice. Just advice, because I found in my own personal capacity as CEO of FARCS that when people call, sometimes all they need is some advice. So all that is going to form part of the dementia plan. The second question you asked?
My second question was, did the DDF and ADI campaign allow the government to hasten their steps in putting this together?
Not at all, and I can tell you an emphatic no. It is pure coincidence that I happen to be speaking with your president, Miss Verone Nicholas, and of course I saw your publicity on Facebook, where you was asking what's your plan, which is of course who have recommended, and we had already started our conversation. Let me remind you what I said at the beginning. I applaud our Prime Minister because he kept his promise. He made that promise on the 6th of November. Your campaign wasn't out until January. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Mr. Jonker, before you leave.
Yes.
Yeah, as a board, do you intend to meet all the institutions which care for the elderly? Do you intend to at least have consultation with them even before you take recommendations to Cabinet?
Absolutely, and maybe it would be useful at this stage to just give you an indication of some of the members of the board. Do you want to do that? Okay. So, I am Marie-Thérèse Jonker. I'm going to be the chair of the board. And then the other members of the board are as follows. Dr. Lenora Drygo, Director of Primary Healthcare Services. Mrs. Delia Giddens-Stedman, Chief Welfare Officer, Mrs. Celia Hamilton, Director of the Yes We Care Programme, Mrs. Janice Jean-Jacques Thomas, Director of the Dominica Social Security, Mr. Cecil Clark, Member of the Board of Directors of FARCS, Miss Iselin Titt, Retired District Education Officer, Miss Verone Nicholas, President of the Dominica Dementia Foundation, Miss Clanis John Baptist, Director of the Dominica Infirmary, Miss Ariane McGlaw, Physiotherapist, Dr. Curtis St. John, Medical Doctor, Mrs. Noelis Knight Didier, Lawyer, Monseigneur Reginald Lafleur, Cleric, Mr. Ashton Revere, President of the Northern Home for the Aged, the President for the time being of the Dominica Council on Aging, Miss Vina Royer, Advocate for Cancer Society, Miss Priscilla Prevost, Nutritionist, representative of the Grotta Home, which is also known as Community Hostels Incorporated. And we also have Miss Melissa Morgan, Director of Gender Affairs. That is the list of the board members. So I hope that answers your question.
Sound like what, a 25-member board or something?
Well, we're going to have, from that, we're obviously breakaway teams. But essentially, what we're trying to do is to have representatives from a broad sector, because we need, for example, we need people from Social Security. Remember, there are pensioners who are not actually drawing their pension because someone else is doing it for them. And they're not necessarily getting the benefit of it. We need people from all different cross-sectors of society, because we need to understand, in order for us to put something in place that works for everyone, we must understand it from all the different angles.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Question for the Minister.
Yes, Mr. Matthew?
Yes, Madam Minister, as a new minister in government, what are some of the issues for you affecting the elderly of Dominica?
Well, thank you for that easy question. During the few weeks of campaign, I had the privilege of walking around through the communities, visiting the homes of the elderly, seeing firsthand what they experience. And I've found so many things, including the housing needs. I have also seen that while there is the Yes We Care program in function with caregivers during the daytime hours, I also noticed that during the nighttime, some of these elderly people are at home alone, and that for me is a huge concern. And I have an idea which I don't think I should share now, but in walking around, I made that assessment, and I have a good plan in place to take care of the elderly at night, those who have no family, who have no one to take care of them during those hours. I mean, imagine an elderly man or woman at home at night and being sick, unable to use the cell phone, unable to call to their neighbor for help. Just imagine that. We could have a catastrophe on our hands. And I think this is something that we really need to take care of. Thank you.
Thank you to the Honorable Minister. Thank you, Curtis, for your questions. Mr. Dura, thank you so much for your question. To both our presenters, thank you. And on behalf of the Honorable Prime Minister, I wish to thank Ms. Jonker and others who have agreed to serve on this advisory board. Of course, we look forward to the work they will do, especially as relates to dementia and elderly abuse, and to further advance the government of Dominica's goals to protect the elderly, to ensure that they have access to quality care. Thank you so much to all of you for attending. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for tuning in. Good afternoon.
This brings us to the end of our proceedings this afternoon here at the Prime Minister's conference room. We heard that the government of Dominica will be implementing a new board who will be in care of the social care of the elderly, as well as all other issues that affect the elderly, as well as health issues. This advisory board will be headed by Marie-Therese Jonker, the owner of FACS, with a number of members who represent other social institutions who deal with the elderly on a daily basis. This takes us to the end of our proceedings. We thank you, our viewers and our listeners, for tuning in to DBS Radio for this press conference. And right now we go back to Master Control.